All right, let's get right into it. When you think about America's history with UFOs, your mind probably jumps straight to, grainy photos from the 40s and 50s. Roswell, right? But what if I told you the real story? The very first nationwide UFO panic actually kicked off decades before that, back in the flickering gaslight of the 19th century. Can you imagine picking up your newspaper and seeing that headline? This was the kind of description that was sweeping the nation. We're talking about something that was, for the time, completely impossible. And yet, thousands of credible people were reporting it. This is a mystery that starts not with flying saucers, but with these phantom airships.
Yeah, look at that timeline. Most people mark the beginning of the modern UFO era with Roswell in 1947. But this phantom airship wave predates it by a full 50 years. And this isn't just some obscure historical footnote. This discovery completely reframes the entire story of this phenomenon in America.
So what exactly were people seeing up there? Let's dig into the details of this quote-unquote impossible aircraft that showed up over a country that was still years, even decades away from truly conquering flight.
To really get how wild this was, you have to put yourself back in that time. The absolute peak of personal transportation was the bicycle. The internal combustion engine, a brand new, clunky novelty. The Wright brothers' famous first flight was still 7 years in the future. The sky belonged to birds. That was it, period.
And yet, all the way from California to the East Coast, thousands of witnesses, and we're talking police officers, judges, journalists, regular folks, all reported seeing the same thing. And the descriptions were just shockingly consistent. A cigar shape, blinking lights, a powerful searchlight. They even described mechanical parts like rudders and wings. These weren't just vague lights in the sky. People were describing a machine.
And that right there is the central problem, isn't it? On one hand, you have the reality of 1890s tech, simple earthbound machines. And on the other, you have these witness reports of a craft with features that were pure science fiction. This wasn't just a small step ahead of its time. It was a quantum leap.
So how do mainstream historians explain this? Well, the official story has a neat and tidy answer. Let's take a look at it, and then let's see if it actually holds up when you look at the evidence.
The go-to explanation is mass hysteria, which was supposedly fueled by the sensationalist yellow journalism of the era. The theory basically goes like this. Newspapers, desperate to sell copies, hyped up a few people misidentifying a star or a balloon, and the public's imagination just ran wild with it. A simple case of collective delusion.
But here's the thing. Can mass hysteria really account for thousands of different people separated by hundreds of miles, all hallucinating the exact same specific technical details? I mean, a rudder? A searchlight? That seems like a pretty big stretch.
When you actually put the claims up against the evidence, that whole official explanation starts to look pretty flimsy. People misidentified stars? Well, that doesn't explain the detailed mechanical descriptions. It was all just yellow journalism? The sightings were way too widespread and consistent for that to be the only reason. Collective hallucination? Well, that definitely doesn't explain the reports of people seeing actual human-like figures on board, waving from the craft.
Now, you might have heard about the famous Aurora, Texas incident, where an airship supposedly crashed into a windmill and a pilot, not of this world, was buried in the local cemetery. Now, most historians agree this was probably a local hoax to put the town on the map. But its existence proves something really important. For a hoax like that to even work, there had to be an existing, widespread, and genuine belief that these airships were actually out there.
So, if it wasn't just mass hysteria, what was it? This is where it gets really, really interesting. We're left with two powerful, pretty out-there theories that try to explain the impossible.
On one side, you have the secret inventor theory. The idea is that some genius, or maybe a secret group, had actually cracked the code of powered flight and was testing their prototype in secret. Then on the other side, you have the alien precedence theory, that this was the very first wave of non-human visitors using a simple, logical shape because, well, a planet with nothing in its skies would have nothing for them to blend in with.
That secret inventor theory, it's a conspiracy of its own, really. Step 1. A secretive group builds this revolutionary aircraft. Step 2, they fly it all over the country at night to test it out. And Step 3, they cleverly let the newspapers run wild with hysteria stories, because that's the perfect smokescreen to hide what they're really doing. It's a pretty compelling idea, you have to admit.
So, whichever one of those theories you might lean towards, the implications are just staggering. The legacy of these phantom airships
forces us to take a major piece of modern American history and folklore and completely reevaluate it.
I mean, really think about what this means. If any of this is true, the inventor or the visitors, then the whole narrative of a government cover-up or secret advanced technology doesn't start in the 1940s with Roswell. It starts way back in the 1890s. That is a 50-year head start on the story we thought we knew.
And that just leaves us with one last fascinating question, doesn't it? The Phantom airships were dismissed as sensationalism and then basically forgotten by history. It just makes you wonder, what other incredible stories, what other impossible truths are lying buried, just waiting for us to find them in the archives of the past?